If you feel exhausted trying to be strong all the time, if you secretly crave being cherished, protected, pursued, but maybe you feel a little embarrassed admitting it, or if you love your husband, but something feels tense or flat or weirdly competitive, this episode might explain why. Last week, I shared a story of coming home to myself and coming home to my marriage. And today, I want to lay a foundation. Because before we can talk about love and respect, two key things that men and women need so desperately, we have to talk about polarity. And let me say this clearly and lovingly. Men and women are equal in value, equal in dignity, equal in importance. But we are not the same. And pretending that we are the same has cost us a heck of a lot. Polarity simply means this. There are two distinct energies, masculine and feminine, and they are designed to complement one another. Attraction lives in difference. Harmony lives in complementary. Desire lives in polarity. So when the differences collapse, tension replaces attraction. We come with different operating manuals as men and women, different instincts, different wiring, different biological leanings. And when we expect the same thought process, the same emotional response, the same internal drives from each other, we set each other up for failure. So I didn't understand this for a long time. I used to live like a smaller, less hairy man, as Laura Doyle calls it. I didn't trust men. I didn't feel safe. I thought strength meant independence. One of my favorite movies was Miss Congeniality. I love the tough, sarcastic, and like physically dominant female lead. I resonated with her. I even applied for the police department, thanks to her inspiration, with the goal of joining the FBI. Boy, I did not go down that road. But, underneath, my heart really wanted to be protected. I wanted to soften. I wanted to be cherished. And I didn't know how to let that be okay because I thought men were scary and dangerous. And yeah, they can be. I mean, well, that's they're big and strong and like that. But see, my husband, like most men raised in our culture, was taught to respect women by treating them exactly the same as men because guys would get in trouble if they didn't. Women would make them be in trouble if they didn't. So I was trying to prove that I didn't need him, and he was trying not to offend me by stepping fully into leadership or protectiveness. And we were both suppressing something very ancient, something biological, and something good. But here's what I have learned. When women try to rise to become more masculine, and it's not really rising, it's just being different. And when men try to honor women by suppressing their masculinity, well, polarity collapses. And so does attraction. This is not about dominance. It is not about control. And this is not about oppression. This is about design. Women are biologically oriented toward connection, beauty, bonding, life-giving, nesting. Men are biologically oriented toward mission. When we lean into those differences, instead of fighting them, something relaxes, something clicks, something feels right again. So, what do we do with this? Well, we experiment. I want you to try something this week. It's not as a rule, not as religion. This is an experiment. So, in theater, when you're playing a character, the fastest way to embody the character is to put on the costume. So clothing changes your posture, your gait, your tone, your entire energy. You cannot move the same in sneakers and jeans as you do in a swishy skirt and a slide heel. It changes you. So this week, I want you to try what I'm calling the softening experiment. For 1 week, choose one daily act of intentional femininity. Maybe you wear a dress or a skirt, style your hair, put on a light scent, light a candle at dinner, use the beautiful mug, wear an apron that makes you feel lovely, buy yourself a single flower or a bouquet, and then observe. How do I move? How do I speak? How do I feel? How does my husband respond? Not because pants are evil, even though I hate pants, and not because you have to look like Barbie, but because embodiment shapes identity. To my tomboys out there, ladies, I was you. Camo pants, oversized sweatshirts, zero desire to be ogled. That was me in high school. Yeah. Sometimes that's personality, but honestly, that's protection. I think it's both. It becomes protection becomes part of our personality, and that what puts us in a masculine mode. If you are thriving exactly as you are, beautiful, keep going. But if you feel tired, rigid, unseen, overextended, it might be worth experimenting with softening. Not because you are weak, but because you are powerful enough to be gentle. I think to embody your essence as a woman. What I so desire is for you to experiment with leaning into your femininity. I know that this may be uncomfortable. If you just look up what are in stores these days for clothing wise, most of what you'll find are clothes that could possibly be in the little boy department. They are not super feminine. But when we do allow ourselves to explore and enjoy and soften into our femininity, our men respond. And and I understand the feeling of danger. Like I don't want any male attention because I don't feel safe. I get that. And that's part of what we were talking about in the first series of A Heart Called Home, the coming home to ourselves. A heart called home to ourselves is that we need to find peace and strength and security, containment on a higher level. When we know that we are safe and when we can start working on our own inner healing, then we know it is safe to embody ourselves. We don't have to dissociate. We don't have to wear masks. We don't have to wear armor anymore. Wouldn't you like to be armor free? Boy, I had an experience. Again, this was in that year. If you listen to my story in the last episode, there was a year where I was deep into soul searching. And I remember having an experience in meditation where I saw this whole scenario. And it was set in like old castle-y times. And I was wearing all this armor. I was out in front of the castle and I was fighting dragons and oh, if you've seen the 2000s-ish version of Alice in Wonderland, and Alice in the end when she's fighting the Jabberwocky or Jabberwock, however it really is, she is all geared up and suited in armor and everything. That was me in this vision. And through the vision, I ended up laying down all of that armor and the sword. They ended up being melted down so that I couldn't even take them back up again. And I went into this place underneath the castle that wasn't a dungeon, but it was like a restorative place. And someone was there to help me take off the armor and put on a new, like, clean frock and stand in this beautiful, radiant light where I was experiencing rejuvenation. And after being in there for a while, I was brought to a new throne room where I would sit on the throne. This sounds grandiose, but it's not, so bear with me. Surrounded by my children. And that was my job, was to just reign as queen, not commanding. I wasn't the king. I wasn't replacing him. I was coming into my own kingdom as queen, surrounded by this was, I didn't even know that was my heart's desire. I saw this vision months before I came to the realization that what my heart was truly seeking was to leave those masculine roles behind and fully embody my motherhood and womanhood. I really wanted that, but I didn't feel that that was possible. And so I had this vision, and I knew in my heart as I saw this unfolding in my mind that sitting on the throne, instead of going out there and fighting all the battles, that was my rightful place, seated with my children. And part of me thought when I saw that, oh my gosh, I'd be so bored. What am I? I'm just supposed to sit there with my kids? I'm not doing anything? Oh my gosh, so boring. Right now, I'm going to get here I am right now, sitting on my throne, surrounded by my children. What my throne looks like is very different from that royal throne in the vision, but I'd say it's even more fulfilling. I feel so lucky to be able to be at home with my children, to be unhurried, to not have such a rigid schedule that I'm yelling at people to hurry up, get out of bed, brush your teeth, did you pack your lunch, get going, you're too slow, any of that. I don't have to do that. That is, I have designed, with my husband, we have designed it so that life does not have those kinds of stressors. And I feel utterly grateful that in my kingdom, I wake up holding my child, nursing him through the night, being bonded, connected together. Last night, he threw up all night long, and I hardly got any sleep at all. But I woke up so grateful because I wasn't going to have to rush anybody off anywhere. I knew that I could take my time today. I knew I could take care of him and the other child that's throwing up and everybody else. And it was going to be just fine. This is the kingdom, the queendom that I choose, that my heart desired. And I couldn't have had it if I did not begin embracing my femininity, which complements and brings out my husband's masculinity. When we are able to do this beautiful dance, you can't both lead at the same time when you're dancing together, okay? Marriage is a two-person thing, right? And if you both think you have the same job leading, no one's going to be dancing, no one's going to be having fun. So in a partnership, in a marriage, I'm not going to call it a partnership. I hate it when people say, "Oh, my partner and I." Like, it's your husband and you are his wife. And that is how I feel about that. So in a marriage, we have designed in distinct roles, and we'll talk about this in a later episode. But it's very important that there is a division of labor and responsibilities, and that they are appropriate to who we are as people and who we are, how we are wired biologically. I tell you what. So again, if you had listened to last week's episode, you heard that my husband was a stay-at-home dad for about 10 years. And there were so many challenges in that, and I will be doing an episode just on stay-at-home dadness and our experience with that later when we talk about coming home to our motherhood in part 3. But in these distinct roles, we need to respect each other in them, and they need to be divided up according to how we best operate. I operate best as a nurturer. That's why I have breasts. That's why I give birth. It's part of my design. And it makes me really happy when I'm doing the job, just like if you were trying to use a fork to hammer a nail into the wall, it would be challenging. If you were trying to use a hammer to eat spaghetti, it would be challenging. So you don't use the same tools for different jobs, but we are uniquely designed for these things. So again, the more we can say, okay, I think there is something to polarity. I think I would like to give it a shot. Fantastic. Like I said before, one of the main reasons that we as women step into our masculinity and we don't take that off, we put on that armor and we're trying to be, commanding the troops just like our husband, and it really can only be one leader. It's kind of how it works. And we will talk about that when we have our episode about leadership and the family, or leadership and men and women. Yeah, I know this is probably blowing some minds here, and you might totally disagree, and that's totally fine. Enjoy a lot of other podcasts, but not mine. Because as I have lived almost 46 years on this earth, and I have lived many different ways, this makes the most sense to me. And so if this resonates with you, I'm so glad. I'm happy to have this conversation together. But you're going to be hearing a very distinct opinion about how men and women are designed beautifully and complementary, and that we get to be our happiest when we lean into these things. So, girls, you know what? Let me just challenge you actually to do this. I'm guessing you probably may not have a whole lot of dresses or skirts in your wardrobe. And the ones you do have, they might be for something maybe a little dressier than you feel comfortable wearing in a day. So, would you be interested in accepting this challenge? And I'd love to hear how it goes for you. Of hopping on down to the store or the thrift shop, because that's me, girl. I don't pay more than $12 for a piece of clothing for the most part, or under, for sure. I like to pay under. Go pick up a couple dresses or skirts, something that can replace your yoga pants or your jeans, and try wearing something skirty, dressy. That is a dress. Doesn't have to be fancy, but just a dress. Try wearing that every day. How does that feel? Because just like I was saying, when we are in theater, you put on your costume. If you are in rehearsals and you want to really get into your role, you start wearing the shoes. And like say you're playing a woman in the late 1800s, she's going to be wearing a long skirt down to the ankles. So you put on a practice skirt so that you know what it feels like. It changes the way you move and your presence. There's a really, I saw there was a gal on YouTube who she did the 30-day dress challenge. And for 30 days, she wore a dress. It wasn't the same dress every day, but she wore dresses, and she was shocked at what happened, not just to how she felt about herself, but the way her child and her husband began responding to her differently. She found within herself she was more playful. She was more light and joyful. She was softer. She was having more fun. And she was really stepping into her femininity. And she was already a pretty feminine woman, very grounded in her motherhood, everything. But the dress changes everything. Her husband responded to her with fascination. So did her daughter, with adoration. It was amazing. Girls, Dresses will change your life. And that doesn't mean you have to turn into Barbie. Oh gosh, no. I mean, it's fine. If you want to be Barbie, be Barbie. Do it. But the point is that when we really begin embodying our feminine, and the more that we can accentuate the differences between men and women, the more men find us fascinating. A guy, if you are looking for a masculine man, a guy who's going to just sweep you off your feet, a guy who's going to be just romance you, all that, that strong, I mean, you know what I'm talking about. If you want that kind of guy, those kind of guys are inspired by their women. They respond to their women. And that's what we're going to talk about. How to get that rugged, sizzly, kind of swoony relationship with your husband. Where even maybe you never really even experienced it before. Or maybe it was that way at the beginning. But now it's just meh. Well, that's exactly what we're going to be talking about through this whole series of A Heart Called Home to Your Marriage. Every week, I'm going to be giving you tips, or we'll be talking with other experts to help understand what it is that men want, what it is that women want, and how to get more of what you want from your guy. Because what it comes down to is we women are the relationship masters. And when we begin to do the change in our hearts and our lives, our men respond. Did you know your guy, no, almost basically, no matter what is going on in your relationship, even if there's been infidelity, it is amazing how we as women can turn things around once we understand the fundamentals of men and women and how to relate to our guys better, how to help make sure we are giving them what they need. Because I learned this fascinating little tidbit that pretty much changed my life. The fact that deep down, for one thing, most guys, not all, most guys are good guys. Just like most women are good women, right? There's plenty of evidence for, outliers, but for the most part, chances are you married a good guy. Chances are you're a good woman. I understand that there's a lot of buildup that happens between life lived together. We have a lot of baggage that we bring from our childhoods, from our past relationships, from our fathers, from our mothers, all sorts of things that we bring. And sadly, we throw at our spouses because they are there and they are a stand-in for those relationships. More on that later. But when we're trying to get to the heart of having those kinds of relationships we deeply, deeply desire, those romances that we have longed for since childhood, dreaming of what our husbands are going to be like. If we want to have that, I have learned from these tools that I was sharing with you that it is ours to create. It is ours to have, because once we make these changes, like I just said, our men follow. And you know what's so cool? Is that when we prioritize our marriage, having a good, strong, healthy, fun, exciting, passionate marriage, we actually become far better mothers. So with that, let's wrap up this one. Polarity isn't about becoming less. It's about becoming distinct. And distinct is magnetic. So next week, we're going to talk about love and respect, what men need, what women need. But that conversation only makes sense once we understand this one. So your homework for this week is to experiment, to observe, to soften, and to delight yourself. And tell me what you notice. I'll be here next week. I hope you join me. If something in today's episode resonated with you and you're feeling a call to go deeper, I'd love to stay connected. I'm beginning to offer whole woman mentorship. This is a one-on-one intuitive support for women who are ready to realign with themselves, their marriages, and their motherhood. I'm also experimenting with a monthly Whole Woman Circle. It's a live, online, guided women's experience rooted in responsibility, presence, and coming home to yourself. You can learn more, join the community, and explore what's unfolding at wholewomanawakening.com. Until next time, may you feel supported coming home to yourself.